Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Lesson or talk number 30. Yay. Okay, we came to part 4 of the book Kabbalah for Beginners that we're reading from or going over. I haven't seen questions from previous lessons on YouTube, so I don't have anything to refer to, so we'll just start the lesson today. If you have questions, you feel free to ask either on Facebook or on YouTube now live. If it's not live, better on YouTube. If you don't have the book Kabbalah for Beginners, you can download it with the link in the description box. Also, you find there the whole playlist of this course. So before we dive into part 4 of this book, it starts with a review about what was written in the whole book until that point. We haven't gone through the first part, if I'm not mistaken, so part of it maybe we haven't talked about in this course, but the second part for sure we did. So let's just go with that and see how it goes. And again, if you have questions or anything to say, please free to post it in the comments. Okay, so let me open the book. Okay, so we're on the book. I think it's page 130 or something. And no, it doesn't say the page. It's around 130. It's part 4. And later, okay, let's check what page it is. We'll need to scroll a bit to see the page. Blank page. And this is the next part. So this is 1, 2, 3. So yeah, it's 120. This is 122, 121, and then 120. Okay, so let's read that. Before we talk about how Kabbalistic concepts can help us in our day-to-day lives, let's see what we've learned so far. It might come as a surprise, but you already know quite a bit about Kabbalah. You know that Kabbalah started about 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, today's Iraq, when people were searching for the purpose of their lives. Those people, led by Abraham, the patriarch, discovered that the reason we are all born is to receive the ultimate pleasure of becoming like the Creator, or adhesion with the Creator. When they discovered it, they built study groups and began to spread the word. Yeah, they did it in tents, not through YouTube or Facebook, but the concept is pretty much the same. Those first Kabbalists told us that all we're made of is a will to receive pleasure, which they separated into 5 levels: still, vegetative, animate, speaking, and spiritual. Actually, it all started with Adam Rishon, like 10 generations before, but Abraham is a good starting point. The will to receive is very important because it's the engine behind everything we do in this world. In other words, we're always trying to receive pleasure, and the more we have, the more we want. As a result, we're always evolving and changing, and also we are always dissatisfied, because if we chase and attain pleasure, then we enjoy it for a second and then it goes away and we have a bigger desire for something bigger. If we chase the pleasure and we don't attain it, then we have the deficiency of the lack of pleasure and also the exertion we insert into chasing that. Later we learned that creation, that's why, by the way, the will to receive, or working in the will to receive, is just like how do you say, scratching a wound. Okay, so it just gives you a tiny relief for a moment and then it becomes worse. Later we learned that creation was formed in a 4 phases process, where the root, which is synonymous with the light and the Creator, created the will to receive. Phase 1. The will to receive then wanted to give, phase 2. Then decided to receive as a way of giving, phase 3. And finally wanted to receive once more, phase 4. But this time it wanted to receive the knowledge of how to be the Creator, the giver. So it wanted both the pleasure and the status of the Creator. This is already something we've talked about. So I guess just about Abraham we haven't talked about. Even the division of the will to receive and the will to receive itself we've talked about. After the 4 phases and the will to receive was divided into 5 worlds, 5 levels of consumers. Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, and 1 soul, meaning the more internal part of the will to receive, that after the worlds, something new emerges, like a new level of will to receive that needs to be in adhesion with the Creator. So you can say like this: the will to receive in general needs to attain adhesion with the Creator, but in the will to receive there are different layers. So there are more external layers, like the places, the worlds that are like the place, and the most internal are the speaking level, or the one soul, called Adam Arishon. Adam Arishon broke, meaning that it lost its intention in order to bestow. That's what broke inside of him. The screen, the ability to rise above the will to receive, and materialized in our world. Materializing means descending into the control of the will to receive, instead of the intention to bestow. In other words, all of us are actually one soul, whose parts are connected and dependent on each other like cells in a body. But when the will to receive grew, we became more self-centered and stopped feeling that we were one. So this is, the will to receive is like a barrier. It's something that cuts me from the sensation of my soul, from the one organism I'm part of. It cuts me from my environment, from the connection with others. Or my soul, it's the same. So, because the others are my soul. This will to receive is actually like a dark barrier of matter that pulls me, just like gravity, it pulls me inside and doesn't let me go outside of or disconnect from this earth into outer space, if you want to use that metaphor. Instead, that's why we need a very strong power, just like when a rocket needs to overcome gravity and go into outer space, it needs a burst of a lot of energy to do that. It cannot do that by small tiny bits of exertion. It needs one huge strong blow. Instead, today we only feel ourselves, and even if we do relate to others, it is done to receive pleasure through them. Because even if I imagine altruism, I imagine myself as the protein body that is disconnected or cut off from the others, and I'm giving to other bodies that I don't feel as myself. This is not true altruism according to Kabbalah. Altruism according to Kabbalah means to rise above to the level of consciousness of sensing this one soul, feeling this energy, and living it as oneself. This egoistic state is called the broken soul of Adam Rishon, and it is our task as parts of that soul to correct it, meaning to connect. Actually, we don't have to correct it, but we must be aware that we are broken and want to become corrected, and then the light can work on us. When we realize that, we will begin to look for a way out of the trap of this law, the egoism trap. Looking for freedom from the ego leads to the emergence of the point in the heart, the desire for spirituality. The point in the heart is like any desire. It increases and decreases through the influence of in the environment. If we want to increase our desire for spirituality, we need to build an environment that promotes it. In this section, we will talk about what needs to be done to have an environment that is spiritually supportive on personal, social, and international levels. Okay, so this is the part about the environment. Okay, pretty cool, this summary. I think it's really good summary because it gives us some kind of overview of what we've been through. Let's see if we have questions before we go in. Hello, Lane, Benjamin, Kerry. Okay, no questions here, and also no questions. This is weird. Okay. Steve is asking about private providence and when does it apply. Private providence is when a person attains his root or rule in the general system, in the general soul of Adam HaRishon, and then he understands how through the system he's been controlled and how he can influence his destiny through the system. Shalom Laviva, Roberta, Beatrice. Okay, no questions here. Okay, so let's continue if there are no questions. A new method for a new desire. Okay, a new method for a new desire. The dark before the dawn. The darkest time of night is right before the dawn. Similarly, the writers of the Book of Zohar said almost 2,000 years ago that humanity's darkest time will come right before its spiritual awakening. For centuries, beginning with the Ari, who lived in the 16th century, Kabbalists have been writing that the time the Book of Zohar referred to was the end of the 20th century. They called it the last generation. They did not mean that we would all perish in some apocalyptic spectacular event. In Kabbalah, generation represents a spiritual state. The last generation is the last and highest state that can be reached. And Kabbalists said that the time we are living in, the beginning of the 21st century, is when we would see the generation of the spiritual ascent, the last state of our evolution. Okay? So actually we're living in interesting times that according to the process of nature, of development, we came to a point in which we experience the lowest state and the potential to rise to the highest state. But these Kabbalists also said that for this change to happen, we must change the way we are evolving. They said that today a conscious, voluntary evolution is required, born of our own free choice to grow. Because we need to acquire a new level of consciousness, the quality of bestow, above or against our natural egoistic instincts. As with any beginning or birth, the emergence of the last generation, the generation of free choice, is no easy process. Until recently, we have been evolving in our lower desires, still through speaking, living out the spiritual level, but now the spiritual Rishimo are surfacing in millions of people, demanding that we realize them. And that's why many people experience emptiness or lack, and they don't know exactly what it is that they are missing. What is the fulfillment for that desire? So this is called depression or pain in general. When these Reshimot first appear in us, we still lack the appropriate method to deal with them. They are like a whole new technology that we must learn how to work with. So while we are still learning, we try to realize the new kind of Reshimot with our old ways of thought, because those ways helped us realize our lower level Rishimo. So we think that if we'll learn intellectually how nature is built, or what Kabbalah has to say, we will know better and know how to evolve. We think maybe that we can do it on our own if we have enough motivation and enough free time and talent. And both the intellect and the individual efforts are not enough in this case. But those ways are inadequate for handling the new Reshimot, and therefore fail to do their job and leave us empty and frustrated. When spiritual Reshimot surface in an individual without the method to satisfy them, frustration arises, then depression, until one learns how to relate to these new desires. This usually happens by applying the wisdom of Kabbalah, which was originally designed to cope with spiritual Reshimot, as we've described in chapter 1, and one of the main innovations in Kabbalah is the fact that a person shouldn't focus on himself in this new evolution process, but focus on building his or her environment. If, however, one cannot find a solution, the individual might plunge into workaholism, addictions of all kinds, and other attempts to suppress the problem of the new desires, trying to avoid coping with an incurable ache. Yes, so if a person have actually this emptiness, and he cannot find a solution for that, he try to erase that by playing, but by finding things to do. So either work or online games or drugs and addictions is also, it's getting myself into pain, that when I'm relieved, I'll have some kind of pleasure. Yeah, it's like with cigarettes. So tobacco actually doesn't give you anything beside the relief of the need for tobacco. So you're spending life walking with these very tight shoes, only to experience some very weak pleasure when you take them off. That's basically our lives. If we cannot develop the spiritual reshimot. On a personal level, such a state is very distressing, but it doesn't pose a problem serious enough to destabilize the social structure. However, when spiritual reshimot appear in millions of people at approximately the same time, and particularly if this happens in many countries simultaneously, you have a global crisis on your hand, a crisis of humanity that doesn't know where to go in order to fulfill itself and live a happy life. And a global crisis calls for a global solution. Today, it is no secret that humanity is in a global crisis. Depression is soaring to unprecedented rates in the United States, but the picture isn't much brighter in other developed countries. In 2001, the World Health Organization reported that depression is the leading cause of disability in the US and worldwide. Another major problem in modern society is the alarming abundance of drug abuse. Drugs have always been in use, but in the past they were used primarily for medicine and rituals, while today they are being used at a much earlier age, primarily to alleviate the emotional void that so many young people feel. And because depression is so soaring, so is the use of drugs and drug-related crimes. Another facet of the crisis is the state of the family unit. The family institution used to be an icon of stability, warmth, and shelter, but not anymore. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, for every two couples that marry, one divorces, and the figures are similar throughout the Western world. Moreover, couples no longer must go through a major crisis or personality clash to decide on a divorce. Today, even couples in their 50s and 60s separate once their kids have left home. Since their incomes are secured, they are not afraid of starting a new chapter at ages that only a few years back were considered unacceptable for such steps. We even have a phrase that spares us facing this painful aspect of our social crisis, the empty nest syndrome. Yet, the bottom line is that people divorce because once their children have left home, there is nothing to keep them together, since there is simply no love between them. It was therefore not surprising to read that those words on the New York Times October 2006 edition, married couples whose number have been declining for decades as a proportion of American households have finally slipped into a minority, according to analysis of new census figures. Okay, so they are minority. At the end of the day, it is not the financial stability that sets us apart, it is the simple fact that people don't love each other, only themselves. But if we remember that we were all deliberately created egoists by a force that wants to give, we might have a fighting chance. At least then we will know what we will not find a solution in ourselves but in Him. The crisis is unique not only in its universality but in its versatility. This makes it much more comprehensive and difficult to handle. The crisis is happening in just about every field of human engagement, personal, social, international, in science, medicine, and the environment. For example, until just a few years ago, the weather was simply a convenient haven when one had nothing to contribute about other topics. Today, however, we are required to be climate savvy. Hot topics nowadays are climate change, global warming, rising sea levels, and the start of the new hurricane season. The big thaw is what Jeffrey Lynn of The Independent ironically called the state of the planet in an online article published. Here's the title of Lynn's article: The Big Thaw, a global disaster will flow if the ice cap on Greenland melts. And the subtitle: Now scientists say it is vanishing far faster than even they expected. Okay, let's skip this weather stuff a bit, and of course if you survive the storms, blah blah blah, Earth, okay, these are climate changes, and then you have, because we are connected, you have all these diseases that can develop into epidemic, epidemics like AIDS, avian flu, mad cow disease, etc., etc. Is this the conclusion? Because I want to add some points. Yes, this is the conclusion. Conclusion. An ancient Chinese proverb says when you want to curse someone, tell him, may you live in interesting times. Our times are indeed interesting, but let's not consider this a curse. It is the book of Zohar promised the darkness before the dawn. Now let's talk about the solution. Okay, that was long. So basically, this was like an introduction to the fact that when we are getting out of balance with nature, we experience this imbalance on all levels, from climate change until to depressions or the incapability of even living with somebody else. I want to add to that beside the ego growing and that cuts us apart and because each one of us is like a cancer cell in this one big organism, and as a result of that we want to live on the expense of others. We want to suck everything out of this one whole organism, and because of that, nature treats us in the same way, and we are being hammered in all the levels. We've talked about one additional thing is that because any process of evolution requires pain, meaning from teeth that grow until bringing a child or building a business, it requires pain, it requires sacrifice. It's against the ego a basic instinct to just look for the easy way out and just lay back on it and drink some tequilas or take antidepressant pills or whatever. So because of that, we must have grit. Okay, so the grit is a very cool word, very cool concept, G-R-I-T, that unfortunately doesn't exist in Hebrew. But basically what it means is that you need to have the ability to suffer the process in order to attain or achieve the goal. So you are willing to endure in order to achieve what we want. And we know from psychological research that this is one of the main factors that actually can how do you say it? That can actually here we go, we open Google Translate. Took me 20 minutes, but a word is missing finally. To predict, yeah, okay, I don't need the translation. Yeah, predict, I was correct. It came back in the end. Okay, so grit is one of the main factors that can predict success even in corporate life, okay? So, yeah, even bringing kids, getting married, keeping marriage alive after 7 years when the hormones and the excitements went away, and dealing with all these challenges on the personal level and the global level in a more networked society, a more connected society that is more prone to extreme states, either ups or downs. It's not simple, and in order to do that, a person needs to have a goal in life, and he needs to have a supportive environment. And you see that in that case, Kabbalah is very similar to trauma studies. So in trauma studies, if you experience a trauma, a huge earthquake, a tsunami, I don't know, like losing somebody close in the family, losing your job, the best way to get out of trauma is A, being active, B, having a supportive community or environment, and not somebody that will take you down and say, oh, you're so miserable, just die, but somebody that can actually help you get through it. And you need to have a plan or some kind of desired state. Where do you want to get out from, okay? In that case, Kabbalah is like very similar to these three principles. Okay, I don't think we'll start. We really read a lot today. 128, I just write it to myself and then I'll take some questions. Okay, so this is page 128. Yeah, so next time we'll talk about the solution, but you see that this chapter is talking about the solution in a very general, down-to-earth way. So it's nice, it's another angle. No questions here, okay, and Roberta. Oh, Roberta, I see, wrote like all the questions from all the week. Do most people feel this need for connection? No, actually, even people that awaken for spirituality with a point in the heart, they don't feel that they need to connect. They feel that they need to attain, because our ego is programmed to receive, not to connect. It takes us a while, and when I say a while, it takes months or years until a person understands actually what does it mean to connect above the ego, and why is it the only solution. Are we born with this desire, what, to connect or to attain spirituality? To attain spirituality, yes, in an egoistic way, and then it's a question how much it is developed in a person, and when does it pop up in his lifetime, if at all. And if you're talking about the desire to connect, you can say that on a beastly level, we are, on the animal level, we are social animals. So we know from studies that even on a psychological and health level, we need to connect and be part of a society, even to learn language. But if you're talking about a spiritual desire to connect, this is only through studying Kabbalah. Can I change society thoughts if I study Kabbalah? No, but you can choose a better society. We'll talk about it later on. Batani, I hope I pronounce your name correctly. I noticed a lot of wonderful things spirituality when I called out to our Creator. I'm nothing without you. I put myself in your hands. Okay, so yeah, building any kind of connection with the Creator, even if it's negative, even cursing Him, that's also good. Because it's the beginning of a connection. Roberta, if he is good that does good, why is there so suffering? This is one of the biggest questions of humanity. You can actually read the article. Actually, I'll paste it. It's so important that I'll paste it. The peace article, where Bala Sulam actually says that this action, if he is good that does good, which is like a naive, unconscious assumption that everyone has according to the upper law. Right? Everybody thinks that he's entitled to receive good things from the upper law. And that's why we wish for good things, we don't take into consideration bad things, etc. So why if he's so good, we experience a lot of bad. So actually all the religions, all of the faith came and developed just to answer this question. How can it be that there is evil or bad in the world? Just pasted the link, and also in the YouTube I'll paste it. And I'll do a small spoiler if for the article that Barcelona says that the problem is not in the Creator but in us. We experience His good as evil sometimes, and we need to know how to correct that. Bitani is asking, no one I know personally believes anything like this. Okay, so Bitani is asking, how do I choose, or how do I get the right environment of people that think like me or want to evolve in spirituality like me? We'll touch that on later lessons. Roberta is asking, what can I do to change tomorrow? Okay, this is also the solution. We'll talk about it, but actually it's going through the environment. Ingrid, long time no see. Can we change our environment ourselves? Yes, we can. How do you start? Well, you start. Actually, if you can't wait for next lesson, just sign up for the KBU in the link below. After you do some self-study courses there, I think 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, then you go into the graduate environment, and this is a good spiritual environment. Like KBU is the best solution for you. If you want to talk about practical how to do it for English speakers, in theory how to do that, we'll talk about that in all of this part in the book that we're going to go into. Ben is asking, what can we do after finding the safe place, a lab to work together? what can you do? You can actually invest in that and improve that. Roberta is asking, does pray help? Yeah, but you need to understand how to pray, because all people ask for things egoistically. Most don't get it. Everything gets a lot of time worse. So what does it mean to pray correctly? So this is something that is still worth scrutinizing. Okay, a lot of good questions. Thank you very much for this lesson. See you next time, which is Monday, 6 a.m. Israel time, or it's Sunday, 11 p.m. New York time, and take it from that, your current time. And you can also watch this all the time in the playlist with the links. So thanks everybody. We'll take it from here next time, and have a great evening, great day, wherever you are. Bye-bye.